Hot Wheels is one of Mattel's most popular and oldest toy lines, going all the way back to 1968. The brand brings in billions of dollars each year for the company, and somehow these die-cast toys are still sold at an affordable price. Even after years of inflation, Hot Wheels never dropped in quality, staying ever relevant by making practically any and all vehicle fantasies a reality. With so many unique vehicles to choose from, it's no wonder why after decades, Hot Wheels is still a booming success. They have done it all, and I mean all. You name it, Hot Wheels has done it, and I don't just mean toy cars either. From video games, TV shows, cakes, beds, hell, even NFTs, Hot Wheels has transcended the metal car format and made a name for itself as one of the greatest toy franchises ever made. But there is one achievement that stands out among the rest, and that is Acceleracers originally aired on Cartoon Network in 2005 as a 4-part series, with a new episode airing throughout that same year. It follows the events of Hot Wheels' first animated movie, Highway 35 World Race, which celebrated 35 years of Hot Wheels. Acceleracers did things a bit differently though, taking characters and concepts from World Race while fleshing out the Highway 35 universe. Unlike with World Race, however, all new vehicles were created specifically for the Acceleracers, along with new tires. More emphasis was put on the plot and the characters than previously. The series also had a more serious tone. The series revolved around 4 teams: the Metal Maniacs, the Teku, the Racing Drones, and a 4th mysterious party that shows up later on known as the Scilencers. These 4 teams compete in races known as the Racing Realms, which were created by extra-dimensional beings known as the Accelerons. These realms were created as the ultimate test of skill for the Accelerons. As such, they defy logic, are vast in scale, and extremely deadly. Once a portal to a realm closes, it may very well be closed forever. If a driver has the skill necessary to complete the racing realm first, they are rewarded with an Acceleracharger, a cosmic relic that when used with a vehicle grants unique and unusual abilities. These can range from teleporting to creating a road out of vegetation. Once all the Accelerachargers are won, the final realm will open. But with a race like this, who is truly the best? Well, sit back, grab a coffee and a snack, because today we are going to talk about and rank every driver and their vehicles from Hot Wheels Acceleracers. I will not be including racers from the World Race other than the ones that were shown in Acceleracers. I will also only be going over a driver's skill, so no Accelerachargers. With that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start off with Dr. Tezla. Dr. Tezla was the CEO of the Scrim Corp, an organization that developed automotive technology. In reality, Dr. Tezla stole this technology from the Scilencers and used that to start the Scrim Corp and build the fastest cars in the world, according to him. His goal was to learn more about the extra-dimensional Accelerons and find an object of great power known as the Wheel of Power, a relic that could generate endless energy, but was also the key to open different dimensions. It is possible that he is the one who informed the Scilencers not only about the racing realms, but also about the threat of the drones. Regardless, his obsession led him to explore Highway 35 on his own with the use of remote piloted cars. These all failed, however, as they lacked the human ability to adapt. So he sought out the greatest drivers in the world to do what he could not: obtain the Wheel of Power. So basically, he disguised this cosmic DoorDash order as a race, and their prize was $5 million. Vert Wheeler won the race and brought back the Wheel of Power, but Dr. Tezla found the wheel to be too great to control properly, so they returned it to the Highway 35 universe. After the world race, Dr. Tezla learned that Gelorum was going after the Wheel of Power once more. Fearing what she might do with the power, Dr. Tezla himself entered Highway 35 to once again capture the wheel, but failed, being severely wounded in the process. In Acceleracers, Dr. Tezla does not actively race, but does have extensive knowledge of the racing realms, and he also created the nitrox they use to get to 300 miles per hour. So where would I put him on this list? Well, for one thing, Dr. Tezla himself doesn't really race. He can design and create advanced cars and technology, as well as chemicals to boost cars, and he is able to get cars to go up to 300 miles per hour, which is very impressive. And he did go inside of the Highway 35 universe himself to try to get the wheel using a silencer car. And silencer cars are not normal cars. These are basically cars that have abilities like the Acceleracers. They can cling to ceilings, they can turn visible, they can camouflage. They're not normal cars. They're pretty advanced. So we don't really know how much skill of Dr. Tezla's necessarily got him as far as the Wheel of Power. Regardless, he was able to get inside of Hot Wheels City, and he almost got the Wheel of Power, but was stopped by the drones, and therefore he didn't get it. In terms of racing, though, he was not skilled enough to try getting the wheel himself originally. He had to basically trick all these different drivers to race to get this wheel for him. Yeah, he isn't really anywhere near what I would consider the best of the drivers in this universe. He's more so the mechanic that builds these cars racers drive. But would I consider him an F tier driver? Probably not. Like, he did actually get inside of these realms himself, and although he got like severely crippled, he got pretty far to the Hot Wheels City, the Highway 35 realm. So like, I guess he was probably not the worst. I'd say he's probably like an E tier for now. I might change it later, but like, he does have the silencer car, and that's probably responsible for why he got so far as he did. So yeah, we're gonna leave him right here for now. Okay, next we got Tork Maddox, who was the leader of the Metal Maniacs. Despite his rough exterior, Tork is one of the more mature and level-headed drivers in the series, caring less about winning a race and more about his fellow teammates and his rivals' survival. Tork is also one of the few drivers to use only one car throughout the entire series, and that being Hollowback. This is noteworthy because losing a vehicle in the realm usually means a lack of skill. What really holds Tork back, though, is guilt. Tork blames himself for the death of Nolo's brother Tone, and this is because Tone died in a street race prior to Acceleracers. This is not helped by the fact that Nolo also blames Tork, even though it ultimately wasn't his fault for Tone's death. He reawakens that dog in him, though, towards the end of the series, when he and everyone else go after Mark Wilde, and comes to terms with Nolo over Tone's death. So where would I put Tork on the list? Well, he is the leader of one of the main four groups of the Hot Wheels Acceleracers. He is also very level-headed and does not succumb to the petty rivalry that the Teku and the Metal Maniacs sometimes stoop to. He always cares about his teammates, and he always cares about his rivals. And he'll just throw the race if it means endangering anyone. Despite the fact that he does want to win races, he does have that guilt in him that he feels responsible for Nolo's hate and Nolo's anger towards him, and for the death of Tone, and he definitely carries that with him into the realm. Using his wisdom and his years of street racing knowledge to stay in the race at pretty much all times, he only takes himself out of races if it means the survival of somebody. I don't really think he should be an A tier or S tier, simply by the fact that his guilt does hold him back, and even though he keeps the same vehicle throughout the whole series, I think he is too safe of a driver to really be pushing his skills to the limit. So I think B is a good spot for him for now. He's probably either going to be in the middle of the B or the top of the B, but I think B is a good spot for now. Okay, next we got Mitchell Monkey McClurg, better known as Monkey, who is the mechanic of the Metal Maniacs. And unfortunately for Monkey, he isn't going very high up here on this list. And the reason why is because Monkey is extraordinarily a coward. He doesn't like racing. He doesn't like racing in the realms. He tries not to. He constantly gets his vehicles destroyed or loses them in the realms. He almost dies multiple times. And he actually winds up riding with other riders in the realms more than he actually races in the realms. Like in the Storm round, he was picked up after getting his car destroyed by Wild. In the Swamp round, he gets picked up by, he is in the car with Porkchop, and then he gets in the car with Porkchop again in the Junkyard realm. He gets his vehicle totaled in the Metro realm. He's not very good at racing. Where Monkey does excel, though, is his intelligence. Despite his cowardice and his lack of skill when competing in the realms, he's very intelligent and is capable of pretty much working on any vehicle in the series. And he built Sparky, so that's something to be happy about, because everyone loves Sparky, right? He also designed a variation of the Nitrox. I believe he called it Nitrox 3.1 or 0.2, I think it was. But it was supposed to boost the car to go past 300, but it kind of failed. Monkey is definitely nowhere near the best. I think he probably falls either under or above Tezla. It depends. I think he's probably just as smart as Tezla when it comes to repairing stuff. Definitely not as smart as Tezla when he comes to engineering stuff, though. But in terms of driving, it's kind of iffy. For now, I'm going to let him sit underneath Tezla, because Tezla did actually get to the end of Hot Wheel City to the Wheel of Power on his own. But he did use a silencer vehicle, so it's kind of iffy. But I'm going to leave it there for now. Next, we have Gelorum. Gelorum and the racing drones were originally created by the Accelerons to test their skills. They programmed the drones to win at any cost. However, instead of learning driving skills to rival the Accelerons, the drones' programming led them to find the most efficient solution to winning.
A drone exists for only one purpose: to race. That's why the Accelerons created us. But then they began to fear us. They were afraid because we would do anything to win, even if it meant destroying our creators.
Because they were not capable of understanding what it meant to compete and only having this drive to win, the drones were exiled to Earth, where they hid underground. The Accelerons left traces of their existence behind, hoping sentient life would eventually evolve to accept the challenge of the racing realms. After leaving Gelorum behind, she grew to hate them and took over the racing drones as their queen, with the goal being to one day pass their tests and get revenge on the Accelerons for abandoning them.
The Wheel of Power is the key that will open the way back to the Accelerons. But only humans could get the wheel. So the drones waited deep inside the Earth, dormant for thousands of years, waiting for humans to learn to use what the Accelerons had left them. We waited so long.
Gelorum would eventually use her resources and knowledge to learn of Highway 35, the resting place for the Wheel of Power and the key to the racing realms. Unfortunately for her, the Wheel of Power could only be claimed by organic life. Since Gelorum was not human, she would need to convince a human to enter the race on her behalf. And that person would turn out to be none other than Kurt Wilde. Posing as an agent of the Clip Corp, she managed to hire Kurt as a spy under the cover that Dr. Tezla was going to misuse the Wheel of Power. After learning of Gelorum's true intentions, Kurt would switch sides, helping Vert and the others in stopping her. Once the wheel was returned, however, The stipulation of a human being the one to touch the wheel was gone, as technically a human already brought the wheel out and put it back in the realm. This meant Gelorum was now able to retrieve the wheel personally, without the aid of humans. After gaining the wheel, Gelorum would work in the shadows, using it to win Acceleracers unhindered. She would go on to become the main antagonist of Acceleracers. In the movie Final Race, she is able to capture Mark Wilde and torture the location of the Acceladrome from him. While the Teku and Metal Maniacs are staging a rescue mission, Gelorum invades the Acceladrome and takes the remaining Acceleracers. In doing so, the final realm opens and she enters to once more challenge the Accelerons. Unknowns to her, Vert Wheeler was still inside the Acceladrome and entered the wheel of power at the last minute to stop her. Although Gelorum is the main villain of the series, I'd argue that the Accelerons are the true antagonists.
I must do what I was programmed to do.
I might say the same.
Gelorum.
Drones were created to race against the Accelerons, and now you have given me the means to face them again, and finally defeat them.
The drones were programmed to win, so that's what they do, at any cost. Gelorum using the Acceleracers to win is simply the most effective way to do so. This is why the racing drones were created. Perhaps the Accelerons put the drones on Earth to test humans even further. If your opponent literally tries to kill you to win, and you still win, then you must have skill. Regardless, why put the drones on Earth if not to add more challenge for human drivers? The drones were just doing what they were made to do, and the Accelerons put them on Earth anyway. Gelorum might have been evil, but she didn't really have a choice either. Without choice, there really is no morality. Anyways, back on track. So, just how skilled of a racer is Gelorum? Gelorum is a character who, as far as I'm aware, only raced one time, but there's something to be said about the fact that she was created by the Accelerons themselves to test them. The racing drones were created as tests, not necessarily competition, but tests to train Accelerons. So they are very skilled. Not as skilled as most of the people on this list, but she is the leader of them. And even though she used the Acceleracers to cheat her way to the end of the track, I think she definitely had more skill than Dr. Tezla. I don't think she has the skill that like Vert Wheeler or Taro have, but she's definitely not the worst driver. Also, she probably, being a robot, has all of the same kind of learning technology that the other drones have as well. I feel like since she's like the main villain of the series and the main bad guy against like Vert, that's like the final race, it just goes to show how good Vert is, and he's definitely going to go way up here in this list. But I think she probably should be in the C tier. Mostly just because she didn't really like race. Like all the chargers she gained was not from her. She didn't personally get them, but just because the fact she is the, like, I guess final boss, final drone, I have to put her in the C tier. Next we have Karma Ice. Karma Ice is a new character to the Highway 35 universe. Not much is known about Karma before she joined the Teku. However, there is some evidence that she has some connection to Gelorum. Most notably, her appearance has a striking resemblance to Gelorum's human shell. Karma Ice is one of the Teku's most calm and collected drivers, being much like that of Taro. She is also one of the few drivers to drive one car throughout the entire series, and that car being Chicane. In the Acceleracers card game, Chicane is one of the best vehicles in the game, only being beaten out by the Hyper variants, Synchro, and Reverb. Tying with Power Rage, Karma is very intelligent and was one of the first ones to deduce that the racing realms were tests of skill, and not races for Acceleracers.
Things it does perfectly. The skills that were especially tested in each of the realms we've gone into. In the Storm realm, it was staying focused on your driving. In the Swamp realm, it was finding the line with the best grip. The Cavern realm was about driving in the dark. To win the Lava realm, you had to understand how the track affected your tires. The drones are mastering specific skills every time they go into a racing realm. And maybe that's the whole point of the realms.
She was also the only one level-headed and open-minded enough to want to learn from the drones. Her main objectives were to win, and because of this, she asked a lot of questions. She also seemed to have some kind of romance going on with Taro, but this was never really expanded upon. I do wonder what the plans for Karma were. The writers seem to have wanted to have some kind of subplot with her connection to the drones. Not only did she look like Gelorum, but she also thought like her as well. She also wanted to learn how the drones think, seeing them as a valuable resource. What if she was another experiment of the Accelerons, like an organic android, made to win but also made to learn? Definitely interesting, and I'd like to know what you guys think below. Anyways, where would I put her on this list? Well, for one thing, Karma Ice did keep the same vehicle throughout the entire series, and as far as I know from watching the series, she didn't really seem to have any issues with the realms necessarily. She got through them all pretty well, all the ones she was in. Now, to be fair, very few of the Teku and the Metal Maniacs actually won these races. As far as I'm aware, the Teku and the Metal Maniacs, they only won, I think, 2 or 3 Acceleracers. However, she was constantly looking for ways to improve. She constantly tried to emulate. She was always kind of keeping up with the likes of Taro and Kurt and Vert Wheeler and the rest of them. So I think she's definitely high up on the list. She's very similar to that of Taro, very calm and level-headed, able to take a situation and do the best she can with it. Honestly, I think she's probably an A tier racer. I think she's very, very good at racing. Next, we got Nolo Pissarro. Nolo Pissarro was a younger brother to Tone Pissarro, the founder of the Teku. Nolo greatly looked up to his brother, constantly trying to win his approval as a racer. He would get his chance after Tone died in a street race with rival street racer Tork Maddox. Although Tone's death was due to miscalculating his car's turn, Nolo could not believe his brother would make such a mistake, and instead pinned the blame for his brother's death on the Metal Maniac leader. This gave birth to a bitter rivalry between the Teku and the Maniacs, one that would follow them into the racing realms. Unlike the majority of the Teku, Nolo is short-tempered and constantly being blinded by his hate for Tork. This ultimately works against him, as it clouds his judgment in the realms. However, there are moments when his hate leads him back to the memory of Tone. In these moments of clarity, he remembers the wisdom his brother imparted to him, and is able to channel this anger into a focused goal. In doing so, he won the Swamp Realm, which was one of the more difficult realms to win. Despite this, Nolo would eventually find solace with Tone's passing, realizing that even his brother was able to make mistakes. Finally, putting to rest the hate and anger he carried, he was able to make peace with Tork, and the two teams were united in fighting the drones. So just how skilled is Nolo? Well, he's definitely more skilled than his brother, that's for sure. In the beginning, Nolo cared more about beating Tork than he did winning the race. And because of this, he often let his anger take control of the wheel. In the moments when he did focus on racing, Nolo proved to be a quite formidable racer, being one of the ones to ultimately win one of the Acceleracers. Nolo's car of choice was Synchro, which also happened to be his late brother's car. And Synchro is one of the better cars in the series. Unfortunately, Nolo does lose his car in the Metro realm, and he then uses high voltage very briefly, but wrecks that almost instantly. So not good when it comes to his cars. He winds up ending the series with Spectite. While I don't really see Nolo Pissarro being a top tier, I definitely see him being very relevant to Tork Maddox. They both carry this guilt, where in Tork's case, the guilt of was it my fault that Tone died holds him back because he doubts himself in that regard. Whereas with Nolo, it's the opposite. Nolo's hate and anger over Tork, who he believes caused his brother's death, is what keeps him from being a top tier. But I do think that honestly, Tork has more experience, and when he drives with a clear head, I think he's a better driver. Also by the fact that he kept the same car the entire series. Nolo did wreck his car, like I think it was high voltage, pretty much as soon as he started driving it, so that's not good. I definitely do think that Nolo is a better driver than Porkchop, Monkey, Dr. Tezla, or Gelorum. I think that without the Acceleracers, Nolo probably could beat Gelorum. So I think a B tier is pretty good for him for now. Next we have Diesel Riggs, also known as Porkchop. Porkchop showed up halfway through the first Acceleracers movie, Ignition, with a trailer of Metal Maniac cars. It's not confirmed, but I think it's very likely that Porkchop's job, when not with the Maniacs, is a cross-country truck driver. This is hinted at when Monkey is surprised to see him, since he was supposed to be gone for months. Also, he drives a diesel truck. This is important because truck drivers have to deal with obstacles that most drivers don't deal with. He, along with Monkey, make up the majority of the comical relief in the series. He is also physically the strongest character in the series, easily tossing a racer drone at least 20 feet in the air. Like, bro, what have you been eating? He is also one of the only racers to actually win an Acceleracharger. Unfortunately though, Porkchop is one of the most reckless drivers in the series, going through 4 vehicles, which include Jackhammer, Jawjammer, Old Smoky, and Piledriver, 2 of which were lost in the realms. His reckless way of driving is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, he can plow through most obstacles. On the other hand, his vehicles usually pay the price for it. So where should Porkchop go on this list? Well, for one thing, Porkchop lost most of his vehicles due to his own fault. He also has a severe aquaphobia, which is due to his father drowning as a child. So this automatically makes the water realm not his thing. He did win an Acceleracharger, which does make him skilled, but only in certain rounds where he is comfortable driving. Being a truck driver, Porkchop is used to driving in conditions such as darkness and avoiding obstacles. I think Porkchop is definitely a better driver than Monkey, because unlike Monkey, Porkchop does enjoy racing and also is not afraid of entering the realms. I don't think Porkchop is anywhere near the best though. As stated before, he is much too reckless, and unless he races on a road condition he's used to, Porkchop struggles to adapt to different circumstances. Because of that, I think he stops in the D and E tier. Next, we have RDL1. RDL1 was the first real antagonist the 2 rival teams ran into, being the one responsible for the apparent death of Kadeem. After winning many of the realms unrivaled, the racing drone would lose its first race in the Swamp Realm, where it was torn apart. He gets rebuilt and goes on to compete in more realms. But after the Swamp Realm, his threat level seems to plummet. Other racing drone L models are also shown, but not to the degree that RDL1 was. Aside from Gelorum and later Kadeem, RDL1 seems to have been the highest rank of racing drone. So how skilled was RDL1? Well, for one thing, RDL1 had the highest success rate out of all characters in Acceleracers, having won a whopping 4 Accelerachargers, and also being the only other character than Gelorum to use more than one per race. This is quite impressive. However, to be fair, the drones only were able to win these Accelerachargers because they had no competition. Likely any of the teams could have done the same if racing alone. Once rivals joined in, RDL1's win streak was over, being utterly beaten in the Swamp Realm. After this, the drone would still compete but would win less and less over time. Like most drones, RDL1 relied on external factors to win races, more than just raw skill. These external factors included weapons, sacrificing teammates, and Accelerachargers. Because of this, I don't feel comfortable saying this driver's skill is an S, A, or even B tier. Since I put Gelorum in C tier because she used every Acceleracharger and yet Vert Wheeler was still able to keep up with her, I honestly don't see RDL1 doing much better. I think C tier, right behind Gelorum, is a good spot for him for now. Okay, now we have Vert Wheeler, the true MVP of Acceleracers and the winner of World Race. So let's talk about Vert a bit, shall we? Vert Wheeler was 16 years old at the start of World Race. He lived with his father, Captain Jack Wheeler. Keep that name in mind because it will be important later. Once getting a perfect score on his driver's test, Vert is sent an invitation in the form of the Diora 2 to join in a world race, one of which Vert accepts. This leads into the events of Highway 35 and the introduction to the Acceleracers universe. Although new to driving, Vert is easily able to keep up with the world-famous drivers like Kurt Wilde and Taro Katano. Highway 35 was the easy mode baby test to see if humanity was ready for the racing realms, which are the real test of the Accelerons. It also was the first time the drones actively came out of hiding in 10,000 years, though their true identities would still yet to be revealed. Vert eventually leads the Wave Rippers to victory in securing the Wheel of Power and claiming his spot as the world's best driver. After the Highway 35 realm was closed, Vert joined the Teku street racing team. 2 years later, Acceleracers ignition begins. Now 19 years old, Vert Wheeler and the rest of the Teku are at odds with rival street racers, the Metal Maniacs. While racing on the seaside, the two teams are approached by Gig, Dr. Tezla's robot assistant. After explaining the new threat of the racing drones, the two teams follow Gig back to the Cube from World Race. It is here that Vert reunites with Brian Kadeem, a fellow World Race rival and friend. Following Kadeem, the Teku and the Metal Maniacs are brought back to the Acceladrome, a top-secret facility that Dr. Tezla built using the energy signature of the Wheel of Power. With this, the racing realms can now be opened. Vert is one of the first to race in the realms, and the first one of these realms being the Lightning Realm. Things take a turn when RDL-1 knocks Kadeem off the racetrack. After wasting valuable time trying to save Kadeem, Vert barely makes it out of the Lightning Realm, destroying his Diora 2 in the process. This marks the first of many negative blows to Vert's ego, having failed Kadeem, losing the race, and having his car from World Race destroyed. Vert starts to believe that perhaps he has lost his edge. This is followed again and again, failure after failure. Unlike in World Race, where he was an energetic and positive guy, in Acceleracers, he seems to have lost his joy of driving for fun. Eventually, he leaves the Teku and the racing rounds, as he fears he is a detriment to his team. After a pep talk with his father, however, Vert realized that winning or losing doesn't matter. The important thing is to never stop trying. Turns out this is the spark Vert needed to once again challenge the gods of racing, as he is the only one left who can stop Gelorum. Climbing into his newly upgraded reverb, Vert enters the realms, all of them, and the race against Gelorum commences. In the end, Gelorum wins the race by a microsecond, but despite this, Vert is considered the true Acceleracer. Angered, Gelorum transforms into her true form and attempts to kill Vert. However, the Acceleron intervenes, launching her into the distance. Vert is offered to race the Accelerons, an invitation of a lifetime. Unfortunately, Vert refuses, as he needs to save his friends. Understanding this, the Acceleron teleports Vert back to the Acceladrome. Using reverb, Vert drives over many of the drones and leads the rest of them on a wild goose chase. Fortunately, in an attempt to destroy the racing drones once and for all, Dr. Tezla plans to blow up the Acceladrome. However, he is stopped by Gig, who stays behind, sacrificing himself to see the destruction of the Acceladrome and the drones. Vert Wheeler enters the Wheel of Power in the last minute and is teleported to the Scilencers base. There it is revealed that one of the Scilencers is none other than his father, Captain Jack Wheeler. So where do we put our boy Vert? Well, I don't think it will surprise anyone if we give him the coveted S tier, and I'll explain why. At the age of only 16, Vert Wheeler was already surfing and skateboarding like a pro. He literally gets his driver's license, his car, and races in the World Race. A race, mind you, that only the best drivers in the world are invited to. He does all of this in one day, and the kicker is, he wins. Vert has this flexibility about him, which allows him to pick up and master things with ease, using his knowledge from his past sports like skateboarding to solve the loop puzzle, or using rocket thrusters to essentially surf a lava flow. Vert comes at driving with this mindset most drivers don't. And it's because of that he basically wins the World Race. Now, when it comes to Acceleracers, Vert has a very bad track record. He drove his first car, that being Diora 2, with a sick paint job, mind you. But yeah, he loses his car in Storm Realm, though to be fair, it wasn't due to lack of skill, it was more so due to time restraint, because he stayed in the realm too long trying to save Kadeem. So he probably would have still had the car had he not tried to save Kadeem, which was kind of a lost endeavor. So that car gets totaled. His next car is Power Rage. Power Rage is really cool. It's a really cool car. Definitely fitting for Vert, I think. Unfortunately, he gets kind of cocky, and he has his ego. He comes into the series with this inflated ego, coming off the tail of winning the World Race. Like when he doesn't save Kadeem, and he gets his Diora destroyed, it kind of, whoa, dang, that happened. And then again in the Water Realm, he gets Power Rage kind of blown up a little bit because he got cocky, and he didn't. It's really dumb too, right? Because the Water Realm should be his home, right? He's a surfer. This is his home, and yet he hydroplanes. So he doesn't win. any of the rounds at all, ever. He gets his car stuck in the swamp round, blows his car up in the water round, has his car destroyed in the storm round, and then the last of his cars he drives is Reverb. But he only drives that in the junkyard round and the final race. So why do I have Vert so high up on the tier list? Well, it really all comes down to what he'd done prior in World Race and what he does at the end of Acceleracers. Trying to live up to someone's expectations of you is always tiring, and when you think you're the best, you have to always try to be the best. After Vert Wheeler goes back home and has a talk with his dad, he realizes that win or lose, as long as you try, that's the important thing. And it's also kind of a really lucky thing he did that, because he went back to the Accelerome right when everyone else was out of the Accelerome, so he was the only one left that could drive. And when he does drive against Gelorum, it's really cool, because he takes all of his past failures, right? The failure with the swamp round, the failure with the water round. He takes all these failures and he applies them. He's like, okay, I let my ego get the better of me these times. I need to focus and just drive and use what I learned from my past failures. And because of that, he actually manages to basically tie Gelorum. And keep in mind, Gelorum's using every Acceleracharger that the drones and the Teku and the Metal Maniacs had. I think there was maybe 2 that she didn't have. Probably the Silencers had them. There was like 2 empty slots, I think. But she had the majority of them. And remember, these Accelerachargers are proof that you mastered the skill necessary to beat that round. So for instance, in the Fog round, you would get the Fog Acceleracharger. And the Fog Acceleracharger would make it so that you would not see fog. It would lift the fog up and you'd have a clear view. But if you mastered the skill of driving through fog, then you don't need it. Keep in mind that Gelorum didn't actually earn any of these. It was her drones that did it. And also the fact that Vert Wheeler didn't just race like a couple rounds. He raced all of these rounds, right? All of them, which is very impressive. No other character, I don't believe, in the series other than Gelorum actually did that. Raced every single round. He kept up with her. Like, I can't stress that enough. She had every Acceleracharger, right? And we've seen what like maybe 1 or 2 of these can do, right? They give you an unfair advantage. And unless you're mastering each of these realms perfectly, you really shouldn't be able to keep up with somebody using an Acceleracharger. But, like I said, Gelorum didn't actually master these skills. She was just kind of cheat coding it. So when it came time at the end of the race for the Acceleron to show up, the Acceleron didn't see Gelorum as the winner. Even though technically she won, that's her programming to win, and she did fulfill her programming. Vert Wheeler did it on his skill, and that's what the Accelerons were looking for. I think just because of the fact that Vert Wheeler won all these rounds and successfully did it with one car and didn't die and kept up with somebody with all the Accelerachargers and was even told by the Acceleron himself that you are a true Acceleracer, I don't see why I would put him any lower than S, you know. S is like the perfect spot for him. Other than maybe one other character on this list, I think Vert Wheeler is the best. So yeah, S tier is where Vert is going. But I will say, even though I think Vert is the best shown, I think our next contestant, Taro Katano, is also the world's best. To understand why I put Taro so high up on the list, we need to first go over his character a little. Now don't worry, I'm not going to go really long into this. I'm going to keep it nice and short. But we do need to talk a little about what he did in World Race. Taro was introduced as one of the main rivals for Vert Wheeler. Unlike other racers, Taro has something in common with Vert, and that is, he doesn't care about the money or the title. He cares about the challenge. When Taro was first introduced, it is revealed that he is already a world-famous millionaire, who not only climbed, but also skied down Mount Everest twice.
Hey, you're Taro Katano, right? Somebody told me you skied down Mount Everest once.
Twice. I'm gonna pass you.
For anyone who doesn't know, hundreds of people have died from just attempting the climb alone. With the amount of oxygen available and the extreme conditions, skiing down the highest point on Earth, it's basically a death sentence. And yet Taro did it just to see if he could. Much like Vert, Taro is one of the smartest drivers and has this flexibility to him when he drives. It's a bit more refined than Vert's though. Taro has the persona of a hardened warrior that will do anything to win, which is half true. He definitely will do whatever it takes to win a challenge, and that is why he drives, is to be challenged. However, any chance he gets to save somebody, or if someone's in danger, he will literally go out of his way to save somebody. And the few times that he didn't, it greatly weighed heavily on him, such as Kadeem. Taro had a thing with Lani at one point during World Race, and he saved her life. He basically gave up on the race, was like, I gotta go save her, and went to save Lani. Oh yeah, he had a thing with Lani, and he had a thing with Karma. Like, what a Giga Chad. Ultimately, it took both Taro and Vert Wheeler working together to save her. This was also the beginning of Vert and Taro's kind of rival friendship. They both respect each other so much, and this respect follows them into Acceleracers as well. I think it's mostly because they both know that the other one is probably like the best driver. Vert Wheeler even says so in Acceleracers that he believes that Taro Kitano is the best. And likewise, Taro also believes that Vert Wheeler is also the best.
He's a good driver. Yeah, for a maniac.
Yeah, the best.
Wow, Kurt!
I'll keep the drones busy.
You can't handle the drones by yourself. He can handle it. Good luck.
In Acceleracers, Taro joins the Metal Maniacs. Why he does this, it's never revealed. Honestly, I always kind of felt like it was out of character for him. That wasn't the only thing that was changed, by the way. Just look at his face, like, bro, what happened? Taro begins Acceleracers driving the 70s Plymouth Roadrunner, the same car he drove in World Race. Although this car gets destroyed in the Storm Realm. For the rest of the series, Taro drives Riveted, which is one of my personal favorite Metal Maniac cars. Aside from Vert Wheeler and Gelorum, Kurt Wilde and Taro Kitano hold a record for most realms raced. And honestly, the race with Gelorum and Vert, they were kind of like bullet timer realms. Like you go into one realm for like 2 minutes and you're already in the next realm. So I don't really consider the race with Vert and Gelorum to be the full realms necessarily. So considering that Kurt Wilde and Taro Kitano raced the most realms and completed the most realms with one car, that's very impressive. It only goes to show the skill they both have. Okay, so here's the big one. Each time the wheel opens, all racers have exactly 1 hour to enter the realm and exit the realm, or else they're stuck in there for good. In the water realm, it took most drivers 40 minutes to reach the end. When it's Taro's time, Taro gets wedged between two drones. As such, he gets teleported to the drone base instead of the Acceladrome. Backing up to escape, Taro re-enters the water realm, only this time he has 20 minutes to beat the realm alive. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is why Taro Kitano is an S-class. We have seen time and time again how pressure can buckle down on the drivers in this series. Like, just picture this. Porkchop couldn't even make it through the realm. He had to abandon his car, so it drowned, got eaten by a fish. Vert Wheeler, who is considered to be one of the best drivers, blows his car up and escapes the realm. And they did this in 40 minutes. So Taro has 20 minutes to do this entire realm again without dying, and he has to do it flawlessly. And here's the thing, he does it. He beats the water realm in 20 minutes. Taro, out of all other characters in the series, is the most calm and cool driver under pressure, being able to complete the realms and learn from them. This is something he probably mastered over his years of skiing down Mount Everest. Like, I don't think danger really phases him that much. I believe it's because he lived for the thrill, which allows him to be so competent. So just hold on a sec. What if Vert Wheeler and Taro Kitano switched places for the final race? Would the outcome be any different? Could Taro have achieved a similar outcome to Vert? I believe so. Honestly, I think it would have been a near identical ending. Do I think Taro could beat Vert in a race? Yes, undoubtedly. Because here's the thing. I do believe that Vert is the best driver in the series. However, I think Taro is a close second best, but that doesn't mean a lot. Let me explain it this way. Say you have the world's best chess player, who has won a total of 501 chess matches. Now say you have the second best chess player, who won 499 matches. Now let's say Taro, the second best, and Vert, the first best, both played 100 chess games. I guarantee you Taro would win almost half the time. So if you replace chess with driving, it's not that different. I don't believe it's that hard to believe that Taro would be able to beat Vert just as many times as Vert could beat him. They are like Goku and Vegeta, rivals who feed off each other and get even better. So in my opinion, Taro Kitano definitely earns the coveted S tier right beside Vert Wheeler. Next we have Shirako Takamoto. So let's talk a little about Shirako's character. He loves music. That's it. That's his character. No, seriously. Shirako's entire character is that he loves music. At any given time, Shirako is listening to his jams. Hell, even while he sleeps. His love for the beat is reflected in everything he does, all the way down to his driving. Shirako's main vehicle is Baseline. Shirako loves this car so much that even after he loses it to the Cliffside realm, he rebuilds it from scratch. Unlike most characters in the series, Shirako doesn't really have beef with anyone. The closest conflict he has is with Porkchop, and this is because Porkchop hates Shirako's music. So how skilled of a driver is Shirako? Much like that of Taro, Karma, and Tork, Shirako is not bothered by anything, never panics or loses control, and never breaks character, but only when his music is being messed with. Sadly, Shirako's strengths are also his weaknesses. Shirako is able to traverse the racing realms with ease, so long as he's jamming out. This laid-back approach works for him as he's able to go with the flow of the track as he races. Where this becomes a problem is Shirako really doesn't have the same kind of urgency or drive to win like the rest of the Teku. He kinda just shows up and represents. His love for music is also a detriment. In the Cliffside realm, Shirako had a Nitrox 2 leak, which threatened to blow up Baseline. Despite many attempts from his teammates to warn Shirako, he was peacefully oblivious to his immediate doom, because he was jamming too hard. It took Kurt Wilde forcing Baseline off the track to save his life. This is a problem. When driving, it is important to have all of one's senses working at their best. You may be able to see the road, but what about the dangers you can't see? This is where your hearing matters. If there was a train track realm, then the skill for that realm would be listening to one's surroundings. Shirako willingly sacrifices one of his most important driving senses, and because of that, he almost died. He also gets distracted way too easily. While I do think he is a good driver, he is far from the best. I will say though, he is very creative on how he uses sound as a weapon. In a lot of ways, he is like Porkchop. Both are reckless while also being resourceful. I do think Shirako is a bit better though when it comes to overall driving. So for now, he will be going in the D and E tier. Though, like at the very last race, he's like, "Ah man, not the subwoofer." It's like that's all he cares about is the music. Next, we got Tone Pissarro, and bro, I mean, I feel bad even putting him on this list because the guy died prior to the show, but to be fair, he did drive, so, you know. But yeah, Tone Pissarro drove the Synchro, which was the car that he passed on to his brother, and unfortunately, I think the original one was green. It came out in like a trading card, it was a trading card pack, and it was really cool. I used to love that card game, by the way. Really cool game. Anyway, but I think it was green. The car that Nolo has is a variation of it in honor of his brother. And I say that because his car blew up with him inside it. So yeah, he's dead. He wasn't flying at 300 miles per hour, or he wasn't racing against giant mosquitoes or in space against killer robots. He was just racing on the street, and he had a lapse in judgment, and it cost him his life. So unfortunately, I can't place him any higher than F tier. Rest in peace, my guy. And now we have our boy, Brian Kadeem. Now, this guy is cool because unlike most of the villains, they're kind of one-dimensional. We actually knew Brian. Like, he showed up in World Race, and he was a really likable character. You know, he actually wanted the money, the $5 million from winning that race to support his home and his village and his people. Vert gave him his check, I believe, but he never actually made it home because he was recruited by Tezla to help try to win these Acceleracers. And unfortunately, the very first race we see him in, the Lightning Realm, he gets lost in the realm, and it's presumed for the majority of the series he's dead, but then he comes back later on as a drone hybrid human, and he's evil now. Unfortunately, our boy is evil. So we don't really have a lot of racing feats from him in the show. He basically becomes AWOL in the very first race we see him in. He doesn't finish it, and that's sad. We do have feats from him from World Race, though, and he was, a lot of the times, keeping up with Kurt and Vert and Taro. So he was definitely in that camp, I believe. Had they made a fifth movie, I do believe Kadeem would have been one of the main villains in it. Part of the reason why I believe Gelorum made Kadeem into a cyborg drone is because the Accelerons told Gelorum that the realms were only made for living beings and not machines. Although Kadeem is definitely no longer fully human, technically he would still fit this description. I think that if they made a fifth movie, Kadeem most likely would have been the main rival to the rest of the teams. It's also believed that Kadeem would have driven RD-10. RD-10 was one of the cars that were released but never showed up in the show. Much like Karma Ice, this is one of those loose ends I wish that had some closure to it. Unless Acceleracers comes back, we'll probably never get answers to these questions. It's hard to say exactly how much drone influence has over his logic now. He might be a better driver, he might be a worse driver. It's kind of hard to decide. But because we didn't see him actually race in the series, except for World Race, and he went through so much change, I'm going to have to put him in C tier behind the L1 drone. Unfortunately. Sorry, Brian. We love you, guy. Kurt Wilde was introduced in Hot Wheels World Race as another one of Vert Wheeler's main rivals. He also acted as an antagonist and anti-hero through most of that movie. Before World Race, Kurt was praised as one of the best drivers in the world, having raced in the Grand Prix. Unfortunately, he was disqualified due to his vehicle's specs being outside of the legal guidelines. Wishing to regain his reputation, he joined World Race. It is revealed that he was working for Gelorum to keep the wheel of power out of Tezla's hands. Kurt eventually discovers Gelorum's true intentions and works to stop her. After World Race, Kurt got himself and his brother, Mark Wilde, involved in a shady business deal that went south. Despite getting out in time, his brother Mark was not so lucky and got busted for it, landing him 2 years in jail. After this, Vert Wheeler tells Kurt about the Taku, a street racing team with cutting-edge technology. 2 years later, Mark Wilde gets out of jail. With nowhere else to turn, he joins the Metal Maniacs. This leads into the events of Ignition. Now driving for opposite teams, the tension between Kurt and his brother Mark add to the already tense conflict between the Metal Maniacs and the Taku. This conflict follows both teams into Acceleracers. After a race between Tork and Mark to see who the new Metal Maniac leader will be, Mark wins. But despite this, Mark is still not treated with the respect he desired. After being trapped in the junkyard realm, Mark is lost. Joining forces, the two teams go on a rescue mission to save Mark from the drones. In the process, the two brothers fight a now cyborg Kadeem. After surviving these events, Kurt and Mark finally bury the hatchet and escape Hot Wheels City together. So where would I put Kurt Wilde on this list? Kurt is an interesting character. He obviously has a lot of guilt for the life he has lived, but now he's trying to make things right. In World Race, Kurt used underhanded tactics to win, but failed doing so and endangered the other racers. Having felt responsible for what had happened to Mark, much like Tork, Kurt has this guilt he drives with, which holds him back. Though to be fair, Kurt handles it much better than Tork does. Kurt starts the series with Slingshot, the same one from World Race. Unfortunately, Slingshot gets left behind in the Storm Realm. Kurt's next vehicle is Battle Spec, which he uses for the rest of the series. Kurt also ties with Taro for the most rounds raced, and like Taro, he keeps the same car throughout the whole series, which is impressive. Kurt is also one of the few drivers to win an Acceleracharger, which is also very impressive. I think Kurt Wilde is one of the best drivers in the series, and although I don't think he is quite an S tier, I do think he is in at least the top 4 for sure. Even before the events of World Race, Kurt Wilde was already a world-famous driver, having competed in the very least one Grand Prix. Kurt Wilde also is very wise when it comes to driving, and he informs his teammates very often about what not to do and what to look out for. It was Kurt's quick thinking that saved Shirako from blowing himself up. So where in the A tier would I put him? Well, to be fair, I think Kurt probably is a better driver than Karma. However, I will say I think Karma is willing to learn and grow more than Kurt. I mean, you can see it in the actual series. She is learning the skill of the tracks while she's driving and applying it. That's something we really don't see too often in Acceleracers. Usually they learn the skills after the race. So for that reason, I think Karma's just a smidge better than Kurt. But they're both very close. Honestly, they could probably tie for third place. But right now, I'm going to put him behind Karma Ice. Next, we have Mark Wilde. Surprisingly enough, Mark Wilde was in World Race. Although he wanted to join his brother in the street breed, Kurt Wilde did not think that highly of his brother. Because Vert Wheeler still needed a fourth member for his team, Vert offered Mark Wilde to fill the last position in the Wave Rippers. Honestly, don't remember exactly what he did in World Race. That's how little he did. At one point, Gelorum's drones threatened to harm Mark Wilde, and this is the deciding factor that makes Kurt Wilde turn on him. So yeah, it's kind of a weird relationship Kurt and Mark have. They definitely do have that brotherly love for each other, but they're always fighting. They're always at odds over something. But at the end of the day, Kurt does care for his brother. After World Race, Kurt and Mark would both join in a shady business deal that turned out to be illegal. Despite Kurt urging his brother to leave, Mark was determined to stay with the deal, wanting to have respect and recognition from his brother. This ultimately backfired greatly as he was busted with the deal, and he was given 2 years in jail. After 2 years in jail, he finally gets out and joins the Metal Maniacs. Part of this reason is to get back at his brother because his brother joined the Teku. Mark greatly blames Kurt for what happened to him, even though ultimately it wasn't Kurt's fault. He kind of feels abandoned and looked down on by his brother. Also, Mark got jacked, by the way. Like, dang, bro, you really used that prison time well. In the start of Acceleracers, Mark Wilde has an axe to grind with his brother. This kind of attitude is somewhat encouraged by the Metal Maniacs, as they already don't like the Teku due to the rivalry between Tork and Nolo. Eventually, though, even the Metal Maniacs realize that Mark's attitude and his constant need for revenge on his brother is not a good thing. It's kind of a toxic trait. Mark has this constant need to be respected and acknowledged by others. This could be due to living in his brother's shadow. His brother was already a world-famous driver, so he probably looked up to him greatly. After joining a business deal that his brother asked him to join, and then his brother leaving him to kind of just suffer the consequences, this admiration he had for his brother turned to hate, and he very much so drives with his hate at all times in the series. After being left in the junk realm, he would eventually be captured by the drones and brought back to Hot Wheels City. He was put through the same process that made Kadeem into a cyborg. However, fortunately, he was rescued before the process could be finished. He still lost an arm though, and so he kind of has like a robot arm for the rest of the series, which is pretty sweet. After fighting Kadeem and escaping Hot Wheels City, the two brothers make peace with each other and join the fight in the Acceladrome. So where would I put Mark Wilde on this list? Well, unfortunately, Mark has a lot of anger issues, which hold him back from being a truly great driver. Despite the fact that he was in World Race, he was one of the least impressive drivers in World Race, and he makes up for this in spades and Acceleracers by trying way too hard to be the best. The main car he drives in Acceleracers is Spinebuster. Unfortunately for him, Monkey destroys his car in the Metro realm, which he's very mad about. The next car he drives is Flathead Theory, which this car gets abandoned in the Junkyard realm. Mark's constant aggression towards his brother and the rest of the Teku is a hindrance to not just himself, but the rest of his team. In the race with Tork Maddox, Tork only let Mark win because if he didn't, Mark could have died. Like I said before, the Metal Maniacs actually call him out on this, of his constant aggression, and they look down on him for it, which only makes Mark more aggressive, as he constantly wants admiration and respect from his peers.
How did you get here?
That's not important, but what is important is I want to be on your team.
Forget it, Marky.
I'm a good driver, Kurt.
My team's full.
All I want is a chance. Let me prove what I can do.
I
that can help you win the race. I always looked up to you, Kurt. That's why I wanted to be a driver, to be like you. But I'm not you. I won't cheat to win! You're not keeping me from racing in the realms anymore.
You can race, as soon as you put winning ahead of settling the score with your brother.
I'm challenging you, Tork. One race, anything goes. If I win, I'm the new leader of the Maniacs.
I'm not taking Tork's place.
Hey, don't look at me.
I'm the leader!
It takes more than winning a race to make a leader.
I don't need you losers anyway, any of you.
Despite how mad he drives, though, I do think that Mark Wilde is a better driver than Porkchop, Monkey, and Dr. Tezla. He does have this drive to win, and he also has some experience under his belt. If he could only get control of that anger, he probably could be one of the top tiers. It would be interesting seeing how he drives if they made a 5th movie, now resolving his issues with his brother. But for now, I don't think he gets any higher than C tier. Honestly, he probably can't even beat RDL1 or Kadeem, though it's hard to say since we never really saw Drone Kadeem race, but based on what we have seen of Kadeem, I'm willing to bet Kadeem could probably beat Mark. And then last we have the standard racing drones, which are the majority of the enemies in the Acceleracers. Yeah, they're like robots and they can think really fast and learn stuff, but let's be honest, they were just fodder enemies, you know? They were always getting blown up or destroyed and taken out or just beaten in general. So I think you're definitely an F tier. However, I will say I think they're probably still better than Toad. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, my guy. You lost. Like you blew up in a street race. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that they could probably beat Toad in a race, unfortunately. So yeah, that's where we're putting the racing drones for now. Okay, well, that is it for the drivers of Acceleracers. Acceleracers is a very near and dear part of me. I grew up watching it, collecting it, so I really enjoy going back and revisiting some of these old things from my past. Special thanks to Acceleracers Restoration Project. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to get the clear footage that I used for my video. They are attempting to try to remaster the original movies in HD, and I really think it's really cool what they're doing, so you should definitely support them. If you liked this video, then consider subscribing. I will be making more videos like this in the future. I already have a couple ideas, including a Transformers Prime tier list, a Scooby-Doo tier list, a Mass Effect tier list. There's so many ideas that I want to do, and I really am happy that some people are enjoying my content and subscribing and wanting to see more. It makes me really happy. So if you like this video, make sure to comment below and like it. Let me know if there's someone you would have put differently on the tier list. If you think I did something wrong, or if you didn't like something, let me know that too. I'd like to get better, and the only way I can get better is with criticism. So please criticize, it helps. And until next time, I will see you all later.